Consider that sometimes men, probably a lot of middle-class men, will travel for physical intimacy and potentially marriage to the Orient and Latin America in hopes of finding a different type of woman. Women that MGTOW men stay away from. I am wondering if American women, hypothetically white middle-class women, have the same interest in migrating in the pursuit of multicultural ventures similar to American men. Where are the women's destinations? I hear rumors of Western women's tourism to Africa and the Caribbean more than Latin America or Europe. It might be that women are pursuing the bad boy type that they are lacking. Multicultural entertainment is also popular. Could it be a trend with white Anglo-Saxon women, or possibly one of their fantasies? It could be that both men and women are confusing adult entertainment and reality. American men seem to need submissive, loyal, adoring ladies. What do American women look for? I suspect that they want more assertive and demanding men. Finding the truth about women is exciting, as they never want to admit it. This a complex topic, but a straightforward theory, analysis, and conclusion. Remember the Al Bundy quote, "Don't try to understand women. Women understand women, and they hate each other." Also, how does this relate to men who travel to Asia to meet women? I believe it comes down to the fact that men are becoming more feminized in the West, while women are becoming more masculinized. Because of the law of attraction, it is now much harder to find a partner who doesn't sicken you if you're a Western woman or a Western man. Therefore, it makes sense that men are moving to Asian nations in search of feminine women. In addition, keep in mind that there are very few overweight women in Thailand. Even a Western man with some feminization will probably appear more masculine than many Asian men there. Men are going to places like that because women will find such a man attractive and because of their financial status and resources. The reason Western women seek out African or Caribbean men is also quite straightforward. Despite my disapproval of the stereotype, I find that the majority of men of color men I meet seem to gain muscle mass more easily for some reason. Western women may believe that these men are larger because of the adult content they watch. Kinsey's study discovered that the average length of white men is 5.9 inches, while the average length of African Americans is 6.1 to 6.2 inches. Even so, adult content producers undoubtedly feature larger men of color on screen, which contributes to stereotypes. Is this racism present in adult content? Because it depicts men of color as having superior capabilities? I'm unsure. In addition to their increased muscularity, Western women may also be attracted to such men for this reason. Additionally, I believe it is much simpler to control such men. If you're a Western woman, you have more money in your home country, which allows you to spoil the boys while keeping these men in the dark about the men you have elsewhere. You can keep your social life apart from one another. This seems to only be fully realized in the age of Tinder and mass air travel. Women can now completely separate their social circles. As a result, finding them and shaming them for their actions is much more difficult. Numerous Western women would drop by to visit Turkish men. They were frequently trying to find a woman who would take them back to the United States, Canada, or any other Western nation. Therefore, in a sense, both men and women could use the carrot of money for a green card or foreign citizenship to entice foreign partners to have children and possibly a relationship. I've watched a lot of Thai documentaries about Thai women hoping that if they date enough Western men, one of them will fall in love with them and take them back to the West. But ironically, when they get there, they'll see men of higher status, and hypergamy will come to the surface. It is common practice to seek a partner abroad. Because having access to Western resources means having a better life, lighter-skinned Western men and women are prized all over the world. I knew an overweight lady that wedded an African man, and this permitted him to remain in the country. Another older white man I knew married an Ivory Coast-based African woman. That brought her back to Canada, where they settled in a small town and started a family. Taking into account your market value and going where you can get the most for it makes sense. During my youth, I also had a hot young woman friend who went to Mexico. She led on to a young, hot, dark guy there for a few years after meeting him. She ended up with a Canadian man who looked unattractive, but at least he had a lot of resources. She decided that her way of life was more important than a gorgeous man who would eventually become unattractive. Both men and women use their good looks to get out of poverty. Most of the time, people in Western countries have become colorblind and believe that being in a relationship with someone of a different race is somehow better. After that, since I'm with someone who comes from the same family, I won't judge. I just don't see why you should try to complicate your life by getting together with someone else unless, of course, you want to find true love, whatever that means, rather than finding someone from the same family and getting social approval from your friends and parents, thereby enjoying a life free of drama. That is preferable to rebelling and falling in love with people your family and friends don't respect. In a way, those who engage in this behavior disadvantage themselves. They appear and feel good. One of the fastest ways to get a woman to stop talking to you is to try that, especially if you shame her in any way. Women will either pretend as if nothing ever happened to them or refuse to admit it, and as a result, they will hate you for asking about their shame. You mentioned that women want men who are in charge. I figure they do as well. And yet they don't. They want to take charge over a man's life. But it's not so much about being in charge as it is about him looking more masculine than she does. Many of the most masculine-looking women can still find an attractive man of color, according to my observations. Again, it all comes down to how much they are valued in the market. That is perceived as unfaithful by some. For instance, Western women who went to Japan to teach English do not receive nearly as much attention from the men as the women do. Therefore, if a man who is below average in the West travels to Japan, he will be able to find women of the same caliber as the top 20% of women in his own country. Even though a typical Western woman moving to Japan would need to lower her standards because the locals don't consider her to be as valuable as the local girls, the market is different for many different reasons, including how men in a given nation view people with different skin tones, how overweight and unattractive women are, and the masculinity of men in that nation. Each of these factors influences the market in any given region. You won't be able to do much about it. It is evident that additional factors, such as age, shape it as well. In America, a woman in her early 30s is still sought after and suitable for marriage. She is not accepted by many men in Asian countries. As a result, Western men seeking marriage in Asian nations will notice younger, more attractive women's desperate behavior more than they would in their own countries. Therefore, a Thai woman of 23 or 24 years old might be just as desperate as a white woman in her 30s or mid-30s in the United States. That's my suspicion, but I don't know for sure. All of this comes down to how people use their value in various markets. The perception that African men are larger aims to raise men of color's market value. Additionally, men of color should not complain about this, in my opinion. If I were in that situation, I am sure I wouldn't. That about sums up my thoughts on the subject. It's important to keep in mind that men rarely assist one another directly. We, on the other hand, give each other helpful information in the form of books and videos, but we do not directly assist one another. The majority of men perceive it as an insult to directly accept assistance from another man, but learning how to assist ourselves appears to be the most effective course of action. Returning to the subject of women seeking men of color in the Caribbean or Africa. Yes, there is a component for bad boy types. No one wants to mess with a man who is perceived as dangerous, and more specifically, feared by the public. As a result, the woman who is with this man has more protection. After all, women not only want providers, but also protectors. But from what exactly? We live in a society that is very safe by historical standards in the West, but that doesn't seem to matter because women always seem to find something else to complain about when a problem with safety is solved. In addition, what makes them feel threatened at that point makes them feel just as unsafe as the issue you just solved. Because of this, women feel threatened by ideas and words with which they disagree. The more politically correct society is, the safer it becomes, Because one of the few things women still have to complain about is political correctness. Even when it does, the threat to women never goes away. Their basic instinct is to find a man who will protect them and have the respect of other men, and men's desire to reproduce never ends. Because of this, we are willing to find a woman in her 20s or 30s with whom to have a child. Even when we are in our 40s, the majority of men and women cannot abandon procreation or protection. But why would a man want to defend an elderly woman who has seen her window for procreation pass by? A Middle Eastern or African man with a Western woman's money and status may do exactly that.